Alright, welcome students to Future Guide Academy. Still with your tutor, Mr. Pirike in chemistry. We are continuing our lessons, still looking at matter, but this time advanced to another stage. We are looking at a cooling curve as well as a heating curve. Now this curve, the cooling as well as the heating curve, it shows us in form of a diagram how matter changes from one stage to another. Now, before we draw a heating or a cooling curve, there's something that you're supposed to know. As these substances change from one stage to another, they reach at a point where they will change. These 2 points are very important. We've got what we call a melting and boiling point, as well as melting point. Now, what is a melting point as well as what is a boiling point? A melting point, this is a point whereby a solid changes into a liquid. Meaning that point when it's reached, a solid now becomes what? A liquid. A boiling point, this is a point at which a liquid changes into a gas. Or in other words, a point at which a liquid will do what? Boil. Here, a point at which a solid will do what? Melt. So these points are very important because they help us to identify different types of elements, because others have got different melting points as well as different boiling points. Now we are going to show them in a curve. The first one that we are going to have is what we call a heating curve. Now a heating curve shows the changes of states of matter starting from a solid to a gas. Starting from a solid to a gas. Remember to say this one, for it to change, there is heat needed. So all processes that move from solid to gas, they're exothermic because they require heat for them to change. So a very good example, we've got our curve here. And that is our curve. Here we've got temperature, and then here we've got our element that is changing. Now what happens is that at this point, remember we said we are showing the change of the substance from a solid to a gas. At the initial starting point on the heating curve, the substance is a solid. And then when it reaches a point known as a melting point, the substance starts doing what? Changing. Until completely it changes. Completely changes. And here it's what? A liquid. When it reaches the boiling point, starts changing. It will go, and then lastly it reaches the gas. So this is what we are saying. At this stage, our substance is still a what? A solid. When it reaches this point now, a solid starts changing into a liquid. So at this stage, what do we have? We've got a mixture of a solid and a liquid. Remember, it's possible if you have got a bottle and there is ice. Sometimes you find that when ice starts melting, there will be an amount of ice as well as an amount of water. This is what is happening at this stage. It's a mix of a solid and a liquid. When it reaches at this point now, completely this thing becomes a what? A liquid. completely it becomes what? A liquid. And then at this stage now, here, when it reaches here, this one was a liquid, but when it reaches here, it has reached its boiling point, it will start now changing from a liquid into a gas. So this one becomes a mixture of a liquid and a gas. It's possible if you have the chance of boiling water, some water will be evaporating as well as the amount of water will still remain in the pot. So what happens there is that it is now in two states. There is gas as well as what? A liquid. Until it reaches at this point. Now there it's a gas. So you are supposed to know, if they specify to say this is a heating curve, you are supposed to know, because different questions will come under heating curve. They will ask you to identify in which state. Let's say they put this is A, this is B, C, D, E. So they will ask you identify the states of matter at all the stages from A up to E. You are supposed to know to say at A, solid, here, solid liquid, here, liquid, liquid gas. The last one, it's in form of a what? A gas. That is what we call a heating what? A heating curve. Now, we have looked at a heating curve. Now we are supposed to look at a cooling curve. Remember to say here we are introducing heat for things to change from solid to a gas. Now in the next one, we want to look at how can we cool from a gas into a solid. Let's have a different one now. We have looked at a heating curve. Let's look at a cooling what? A cooling curve. So we are saying a cooling curve. Here what happens under a cooling curve? We are changing a substance from a gas. A substance is changing from gas to solid. Now remember we mentioned to say that process, the first one was exothermic. But this one now is endothermic because heat is released within. There is no need of external heat for substances to change because the process involves what? Cooling. Now, what happens under a cooling curve? We have our diagram. And then we have our temperature and the element going down. Now this is what happens from the way it go here. Let me just draw. Now this is how it goes. Under a cooling curve, the first initial substance that we have, remember we mentioned to say it's a what? It's a gas. So this one is a gas. When it reaches at this point now, it is changing. Instead, it becomes a gas and a liquid. And then when it reaches at this point, this part becomes exactly a liquid. And then at this point, when it reaches at this point now, a liquid is now changing into a solid. It's freezing. So here we are going to have solid stroke liquid. Until the last part, we've got what we call a solid. So that is the process. So when you turn the heating curve the other way around, you're going to have what we call a cooling what? A cooling curve. The difference, what you're supposed to know is that the first one under a cooling curve is a gas. The first one under a heating curve is a what? It's a solid. Similarly, identify what the question is asking you to do, because don't mix a cooling curve as well as a heating curve. The other one, this one is the process is endothermic, the other one the process is exothermic. Heat is needed in the heating curve, the heat here is consumed within because there's a process that is a cooling. Identify that and ensure that you answer different questions that you have. I hope you have understood. Exercise different past exam questions. To your tutor, continue following Future Guide Academy. Thank you.